Hi, I'm Sharp. Welcome to my workshop. Today we are putting together a costume of the Dread Pirate Roberts from the movie The Princess Bride, so stick around. So let's start off with some of the easier pieces that I've put together. The shirt is off Amazon. Took quite a while to get here. They were almost a month late. I did order a second shirt that I think might look a little better than this one. That one's off of wish.com though, so that was our first time buying off of Wish, so we'll see how that turns out. I usually wear a large, but I ended up getting a double X large for this one just to give it that nice pirate feel, massive sleeves, and all of that fun stuff. Pants, thrift store. I found myself a comfortable pair of pants, keyword there, comfortable, at the local thrift store. They fit just fine and they look great. They're more dress pants, more than pirate pants, but I think they'll work well. If they don't, I'll just get myself a different pair. For the headband, Amazon. I just got myself a do-rag off of Amazon. I'm sorry. Gloves are the same thing. I got them off of Amazon. You'll find links to everything in the description. By the way, excuse me again. These are really nice and thin. I really like these gloves. You can like grab anything you want with them. They're just gonna be perfect for this costume. The sash, I actually ended up making the sash myself. I just went to the local fabric store, got myself some black fabric, and then just sewed myself an 8-inch wide sash. The belt, I went to the local leather store and I got myself a belt, black belt. I had to cut it. I took it long enough because of the way he wears it in the movie. There is part of it that is sticking out. What he actually wears in the movie is actually a ring belt. So this one here was the same. This is the buckle that came with the belt. So the belt that's on the buckle, excuse me, that's on the belt right now was the same as this. It had this nice little pin here. All you had to do was make holes, which I didn't do. So these are just snaps over here. So I took this one off and I removed this pin to turn this into a ring belt, which is what he wears in the movie. So I think this is going to work really well. The leather was really stiff when I first bought the belt. I really had to work it so that it's nice and soft and that it looks great when I wear the costume as a whole. So next we'll do the mask. So for the mask, initially I was going to use this. I found this at my local costume shop. It looked really nice when I picked it up. However, closer I looked at it, there's a few things I didn't like about it. There's a ridge at the top, well, actually almost all the way around. The opening for the eyes is too big for my liking. The shape over here. Anyway, it's just a few things about this mask that I didn't like. So I tried to come up with something else. So I decided to try something I haven't done before, and that is to work with leather. So I have this 3 to 4 ounce, 8.5 by 11 piece of leather. This will be my first time, so I really hope this will turn out because I get one shot at this unless I buy another piece of leather, of course. So what I did is I went online, found myself a pattern that I liked, modified it slightly to my liking. I extended the edges over here. I cut down a little bit on the bottom because it was coming too far down on my nose, and the openings for the eyes, I just made those smaller so that I try to keep it as close as screen accurate, excuse me, as possible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trace this onto my leather and then cut it. Before I continue, there's a couple of things that I forgot to mention. One, I'm using veg tan leather. Clearly I'm going to dye this afterwards. And second, I didn't just decide to make a mask and then just, you know, went ahead and did it not knowing what the heck I was doing. I kind of don't, but I'm actually following a tutorial from Weaver Leathercraft. So if you want to start working with leather, look them up on YouTube. They have some great tutorials to get you started. So when it comes to this part, I've had or heard of many different ways to do it. Some people say you just use a sponge to get your leather wet. Right now it is, you know, it's not going to take the shape of my face if I just do it like this. So some say just use a sponge and just dab it a little bit. Others say, you know, just quickly run it under water. However, since I'm following the tutorial, he actually soaks it into some water. He doesn't do it for a very long time, maybe 15 to 20 seconds, like he says in the video. So that's what I'm going to do, and we'll see how that turns out. So let's do that. So once again, once this is wet, it's still too flimsy to take the shape of my face, excuse me. So I'm going to let this dry for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll come back, and hopefully this will be workable enough so that I can take the shape of my face. But it turns out that soaking it was not the best idea. I got way too much water on this. Actually been drying for a few hours, even though I said it would take 15 to 20 minutes. I did manage to cut out a second mask of what little leather I had, and I ended up using a sponge on this one, and it actually turned out really nice. But this one here is now dry enough so that I can show you what I did. So basically I want this mask to be shaped to my face. So I'm going to take my finger, put it in the middle. I am just shape it best I can. Sides, nose. And there we go. So this is still a bit damp, so I'm going to let it dry. Just going to set it down over here. We'll let it dry overnight. I now have a spare. So next step on these two things, I'm actually going to do both. But it's just one, like I said, I'll have a spare. So once everything is dry, we'll put some dye on there and apply a top coat as well. So I've dyed the one mask already. It went really well, needed 2 coats, and then I put the top coat on top of that, and now I'm going to do the second one. I have my black dye over here. Earlier I used the sponge. That didn't go really well, so this is still a sponge, but it's on the stick, so hopefully it works better. We'll see how that goes. Alright, so all this is dried up now. I already did my marks. All I have to do, my holes in. There we go. This is what I'm going to use. The straps. I actually got these off of the original mask that I bought for this cosplay. I just took them off. I'm going to use them on this one. So, this part is done. Time to move on to the next part. So, moving on to the sword. The sword was 3D printed. I found the files both for the sword and the sheath on Thingiverse. And the name of the author, modeler, whatever you want to call it, is Voxel3, if I'm not mistaken. Now the thing about the sword is it's extremely movie accurate. It's insane. He did a really great job. The blade, however, is very thin, which makes it very flimsy. So I wouldn't get in a sword fight with this. However, the way he designed it, basically, there's two halves. One to the blade, one on each side, and they're staggered, which makes it a little bit more sturdier. And when I was done, I coated the sword with some XTC 3D. I hate this stuff, by the way. I only used it because I needed a bit more strength in the sword, but I don't like working with that. This was an experimental thing that I bought. I wanted to try it out. Didn't like it. Only use it if I have to. For the handle, I just covered it up, used some extra pleather that I had, some black pleather, and just covered it up. The sheath is a bit tricky. It's extremely thin. I ended up cracking it, actually. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. But it's meant to be just a guide. I left everything in there, the pieces of plastic that I printed it. They have to be printed in spiral mode if you have Cura. And also remember to set your bottom layers at 0, otherwise you'll have bottom layers and you won't be able to fit the sword right through. So you have to put your bottom layer at 0. So I ended up putting the sheath together, and then I just used the same pleather that I mentioned earlier, and I just covered it all. Using the pleather, and then I put the top piece and the bottom piece to it. Turned out really well. The frog, I just used excess leather that I had, made a frog, I tied it over here, and this is actually a very nice sword. It's going to go really well, really well actually, with this costume. And now for the nightmarish part of this costume, the boots. Now, I was crazy ambitious with the idea of the boots. I was way over my head. I wanted to make them myself. I use a method that I found on YouTube. I forget his name. Again, you will find the link in the description down below. So basically, this is a boot cover. All the sole itself, this is just a shoe, and I have glued the boot cover on top of the shoe. The tricky part was finding a pattern, and I just couldn't find one. I found a friend of mine actually did give me a pattern. However, I found that it looked too much like those Halloween boot covers, and I wanted mine to look more like a real boot. So what I ended up doing is taking this boot, I covered it in saran wrap just to protect it, and then I used some clear packing tape. And once that was done, I just traced where the heel is and the front of the boot, and then the rest. and I ended up making my own pattern. So here's the front, the heel, and then the rest of the boot. I made it longer for, I forget what this is called. The flap, I forget, whatever. So I ended up making my own pattern. And then I used real leather to do this. Now I actually I messed up the heel on both boots. There was far too much leather there. I ended up cutting it and trying to mask it as much as I could. I'm really upset and unhappy about how the heel turned out. The boot in general, however, I'm very happy. What I ended up doing as well, if you remember from the mask part of the costume, I soaked the leather because I actually pinned everything. I really wish I had some technical issues, so I don't have the video for this for whatever reason. They're not on my computer, not on my camera, so I don't have the video of when I actually did this. But I actually pinned everything to the boot and glued it at the same time. But to do that, because it's leather and it's pretty thick, it's 3 to 4 ounce leather. So you can't just put pins through here. So I soaked it to make the leather softer so that I could actually pin it down. I glued it, and then after about 24 hours of curing, I just removed the pins, cut the excess leather, and this is the result. They fit really well. Just the one boot, for some reason, I can't put on without a shoehorn. But other than that, they're comfortable. I'm looking forward to actually walking around with these. So that's it for my Dread Pirate Roberts costume. If you enjoyed today's video, please like, share, and comment. And if you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss any of my upcoming content. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time in Sharp's Workshop.